I'm here.
Hi, Councillor Pauls. We are currently waiting for quorum. Public health is still going. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I had to leave Public Works, Public Health. My mother-in-law had a stroke, so I had to go to the emergency. So, but I'm here now. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So what we're
So
doing
I'll
is
wait.
Councillor Pauls?
You want me to wait, or can I go into a few things?
What we're doing is we are going to wait until 2 o'clock or closer to 2. If Public Health or the Board of Health has wrapped up before then we're going to restart the meeting in council chambers. If it doesn't, then I'm going to ask for a quorum of councillors to join this meeting by either WebEx or in person so that we can recess the meeting until the Board of Health is done.
Perfect. Yeah.
So if you'd like to join back into Board of Health, Lorraine Kolar is in there and Tamara Bates, and they will guide you through what's going to happen with the Public Works meeting and the overlap.
Okay, I'll go back on Public Work.
Okay.
Public Health. Thank you.
I'll see you a bit later.
Yeah.
do like cheese and ground beef and onion.
Check 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4.
No, go lay down. No. Go lay down, boys. Why? Hey, we're waiting for quorum, so. Wait, maybe not. It might be about to start. Nope, maybe not. I don't know. No one knows what's going on. Public health ran long. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Yes. Yeah, it can be. Or sometimes they do that when they're deaf too.
Okay, we have quorum present. Thank you, committee members, and welcome to Public Works Committee of February 13th. Quorum is present. And do we have to just automatically move into a vote for recessing? Okay, so may I please have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Danko, seconded by Councillor A. Wilson. Thank you both. To recess the Public Works Committee until such time the Board of Health has resigned, not resigned, adjourned, that's the word, adjourned, adjourned. It's been a day, folks. And then we will come back and get on with our committee work here. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing no hands in opposition, it's carried. Thank you, staff. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
welcome back. We're good to go. Welcome back. I'd like to call the Public Works Committee of February 13th, 2023 to order. Elsie McIntosh, please, are there any changes to our agenda this afternoon?
Yes, Madam Chair, there are changes to the agenda. The addition of number 6, delegation request, Maimoon Guyan, McMaster EcoCar, respecting EV in Hamilton for a future meeting. Item 13, notices of motion. 13.1, crime prevention through environmental design review of the city-owned escarpment staircases. Item number 14, general information, other business. 14.1, amendments to the outstanding business list. A, improving truck route detouring during construction closures. The item on OBL is ABY. The current due date is March 20th, 2023. The proposed new due date is May 15th, 2023. B, protected bike lane curbs, Hamilton Cycling Committee, Citizen Committee Report, item on OBL ACA, current due date is January 16th, 2023. Proposed new due date is March 20th, 23. Antonio Gallo Ice Cream Retail, respecting ice cream vendor operation at Confederation Park. Item on OBL ACN, current due date Q1 2023. The proposed new due date is March 20th, 2023. And D, roadway safety measures on Aberdeen Avenue from Queen Street to Longwood Road, item on OBL AZ. Current due date, Q2 2023, proposed new due date, July 5th, 2023. And although not a change to the agenda, item number 8.1, PW Report 22088A, was updated. The ministry order number needed to be corrected from 142403768 to 142403769. Appendix B was also updated on the agenda.
Thank you for those updates. May I please get a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Cassar, seconded by Councillor Jackson. Thank you both. Electronic vote.
Is Councillor Paul? Councillor McMeekin.
Councillor McMeekin, if you could indicate your vote, please. Thumbs up, thank you.
And Councillor Spatafor is absent.
All the votes are registered.
It's not letting me share. It's not letting me share. Is Councillor Paul's on the call? No. No, I don't see her.
I don't believe Councillor Pauls is on the meeting. Yeah.
Carries 9-0.
And that carries, thank you. Moving on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations, colleagues, either qualifying or disqualifying? Seeing none being indicated, we'll move forward to approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of January 16th, 2023. May I please have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Cassar, seconded by Councillor McMeekin. No, Beatty, thank you. There you go, Councillor Beatty. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, colleagues, then it's before you for electronic vote. It will be soon. There it is. And that carries, thank you. Moving on to delegation requests. May I please have a mover and seconder to approve the delegation requests, which are all for a future for a future meeting. 6.1 through 6.4 particularly. Moved by Councillor Crutch, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McMeekin. We'll just make our way around the room. So for a future meeting, and it's before you electronically. Councillor McMeekin, thumbs up, thank you. And that carries. Next up is staff presentations. If I could, please. 8.1 is Burlington Street Sewage Spill Update, PW Report 22088A. GM Con online? Not here. Okay, so straight over to Director Winters from Hamilton Water to provide the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, testing. I think this should work. All right. Good afternoon, Chair Nan, members of Public Works Committee. For those that are watching virtually, I'm Nick Winters, Director of the Hamilton Water Division. This presentation and report PW 22088A provide an update on the Burlington Street sewage spill that was discovered last November. But more specifically, I'll discuss the details of the risk-based inspection pilot program that was implemented as a result of the spill. The provincial officer's order that was issued by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks to the city on January 18th of this year, and a communications guideline that has been recommended for implementation regarding any sewage spills from city infrastructure to the natural environment that are discovered in the future. Before I dive into the presentation, I do want to apologize for any confusion that we might have created. I did note when I was reviewing the report over the weekend, the errors that Legislative Coordinator McIntosh has identified were updated earlier this morning. For anyone who accessed the report online after 11 o'clock today, they have the correct version, but I'm sure there are folks that read that report previously and might have been confused by those errors, so I apologize for that. So this slide provides the presentation outline. I'll just leave it with you for a second and we'll move on. And this slide, just a reminder of the details for the Burlington Street spill. These are the same details that were in the presentation that I provided to Public Works Committee on November 28th of last year. So nothing new on this slide, but it was certainly the precursor for today's report. And some of the recommendations that we're making here today. So this slide speaks to our risk-based inspection pilot. As a result of the discovery of the Burlington Street spill, Hamilton Water implemented a risk-based inspection program pilot for the investigation of cross-connected sewers. A detailed description of the pilot has been included as Appendix C to the report, but I will provide a high-level overview. The pilot was initiated on December 3rd of last year, which was 11 days after the discovery of the Burlington Street spill. And this slide identifies that the city's combined sewer system has 192 designed connections to the storm sewer, and those connections are called critical regulators. And those regulators are designed to allow overflows of combined sewage into the city's storm sewers, but only during wet weather events, and that's in order to protect the community from sewage backups into basements, surface flooding, or damage to our wastewater treatment infrastructure. This slide mentions that those 192 critical regulators are inspected twice every year to ensure that they're maintained in a fit state of repair and that they're functioning properly. It is important to note that connections between the combined sewer system and the storm sewer system are only made in maintenance chambers so that they can be easily inspected and maintained. This slide provides information about the risk-based inspection pilot. The pilot was initiated for the combined sewer system predominantly in Ward 3 and also extending into Ward 4. And this area was selected because this is where the Burlington Street spill was discovered. There are four large storm sewers that discharge to the harbor in this area and that can carry combined sewage during wet weather events. And those are the Wentworth Street North, the Birch Avenue, the Ottawa Street North, and the Kenilworth Avenue North combined sewer overflow outfalls. The map with the red boundary on this slide shows the sewer catchment areas for these four outfalls, which stretches from Wellington Street to Strathard Avenue and from the base of the escarpment to Hamilton Harbor. Staff analyzed this area looking for combined sewer maintenance holes in close proximity to storm sewers, as these are the likely locations for any cross-connected sewers to exist. Initially, staff identified 292 maintenance chambers for the first phase of inspections, but after the discovery of the Rutherford Avenue spill, which I'll discuss in a moment, staff added an additional 339 storm sewer maintenance chambers to the pilot. The second map on this slide is a snapshot of the inspection layer, and it shows combined sewer maintenance chambers to be inspected in yellow and storm sewer maintenance chambers in green. The report identifies that as of January 30th, 407 of the 631 maintenance holes had been inspected, but I can update that as of February 10th, which was last Friday, we're up to 460 completed inspections. We're aiming to have the entire pilot completed by the end of April. And to date, we found 7 critical regulators that were not previously in our inventories, 1 non-critical regulator, and 2 sewage spills. So as was reported to council and the community, the first sewage spill identified during the pilot program was at Rutherford Avenue and Myrtle Avenue, and it was discovered on January 9th. The details of that spill are included as Appendix D to the report, but this spill was a result of a historic combined sewer with 11 properties connected that was directly connected to a constructed storm sewer during a city capital project in 1996. It still isn't clear why these sewers would have been connected, although I can speculate that staff at that time incorrectly thought that the combined sewer in question was actually a storm relief sewer that only received stormwater from the catch basins on Rutherford Avenue. What might be important for committee to hear is that our original pilot program to inspect the 292 maintenance chambers shouldn't have found this spill. Staff were completing inspections of combined sewer maintenance holes in this area, and all of those inspections found nothing. But while they were completing that work, they noticed sanitary odors from a nearby storm sewer maintenance chamber, and that prompted some additional investigation. Staff later learned that what was identified as a storm sewer on our GIS maps was actually an old combined sewer that had been misidentified. Now that discovery prompted changes to our pilot, hence the inclusion of an additional 339 inspection points. The second sewage spill identified during the pilot program was discovered on January 18th on Kinraid Avenue. And the details of this spill are included as Appendix E to the report. And in this instance, there was a sewer lateral from a single home that was connected to the proper sewer, a combined sewer. But as a result of what looks like a sewer design error, some of the sewage from that home was flowing into the combined sewer and then through a critical regulator into the nearby storm sewer. The critical regulator was built during a city capital project in 1982 when storm relief sewers were constructed on Kinraid Avenue. And the picture on this slide is a representation of what was occurring at that location. But repairs were made on January 19th of this year, and everything is now working correctly in this area. As council is aware, on January 18th, the city was issued a provincial officer's order from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. And the order is in relation to both the Burlington Street and the Rutherford Avenue spills. The order as issued is included as Appendix A to the report, and it requires the city to complete 8 action items with deadlines on February 6th, March 17th, May 12th, and June 30th. The action items specified in the order require the city to do a number of things, including identifying or retaining qualified persons to undertake those action items, to identify and ultimately implement enhancements to Hamilton Water's surface water and sewer sampling programs that will support the quicker identification of any sewage spills that might be occurring in our systems, the establishment or revision of applicable operating procedures or guidelines, and the analysis and comparison of different methodologies to inspect the city's sewers looking for cross-connected sewer pipes. So for example, an analysis of a detailed camera inspection program for all sewer pipes versus a risk-based inspection program for maintenance chambers versus other possible methods that are identified by our consultants. And the final item is the completion of a gap analysis of the city's existing sewer inspection programs versus industry standards. Appendix B to the report provides Hamilton Water's work plan to meet the order requirements. Qualified persons have already been identified and include 2 separate consulting firms along with expert city staff. The submission to the MECP to satisfy order items 1 and 2 was sent on Friday, February 3rd, and is included as Appendix G to the report. We're currently working towards the March 17th deadline, which requires us to identify recommendations for enhancements to our sampling programs as discussed. And at the same time, we've retained Stantec to complete the analysis and recommendations related to sewer inspection programs, and also to complete the gap analysis. Order items 7 and 8 will be completed by city staff, and that will be after the May 12th MECP deadline. Now, this slide provides an update on actions undertaken by Hamilton Water since the discovery of the Burlington Street spill, all of which I've already spoken to on other slides, but I will leave them here for a moment. With respect to next steps, we will be completing the risk-based inspection pilot and using the information gained to develop a broader program across the city's entire combined sewer system. This broader inspection program will certainly be informed by the work that Stantec is completing in relation to the order as well. And committee will be updated with what that program ultimately looks like, including any financial or staffing requirements to support it later this year. We will, of course, be working to comply with all aspects of the MECP order, as I've discussed already. While it's not on this slide, I should also advise that we are still continuing with investigations into these spills on several fronts. Hamilton Water created a non-compliance in our wastewater quality management system that's being investigated internally. Last week, Public Works conducted a lessons learned session to dissect the response and communications related to these events and to determine what went well and where improvements are needed. The Office of the Corporate Auditor is also initiating their own investigation. And as Council is aware, the Burlington Street spill has been referred for investigation by the MECP's Investigations and Enforcement Branch. Finally, if committee and council approve the recommendations in report PW 22088A, then we'll work to implement the recommended communications guideline for future sewage spills. And this is the last thing I'm going to speak to as part of this presentation. Hamilton Water's proposed communications guideline is included as Appendix F to the report. And the goal of the guideline is to ensure transparency with respect to the identification of any future sewage spills from city infrastructure. And this guideline complements the city's current processes for communicating with stakeholders and the community regarding combined sewer overflows and wastewater treatment plant bypasses. In order to establish an efficient process, we're recommending different communications tactics for 3 different spill scenarios, which are detailed on this slide. Scenario A is for spills from up to 10 properties or 100 million liters of sewage. Scenario B is for spills from 11 to 49 properties or 101 million to 500 million liters of sewage. And scenario C is for 50 or more properties or over 500 million liters of sewage. There are several communications processes that will be standard for all 3 scenarios. The first of which is to create a dedicated map-based web page that will identify the location of any sewage spills that are discovered and provide a record of information for each spill. The other common processes will be notification to Public Health Services, notification to the Ward Councillor's Office, notification to the General Manager of Public Works Office, and the inclusion of any details in the city's e-newsletter. Spills that fall into scenario B would also be reported to the community using the city's social media channels and include notification to the city's senior leadership team, to the mayor and council, and to the media. Spills that fall into scenario C would result in the city issuing a media release and holding a media briefing. And we'll also notify other stakeholders directly, including our Hamilton Harbor Remedial Action Partners, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy Chiefs Council, the Huron-Wendat Nation, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, 6 Nations of the Grand River, the Joint Stewardship Board in the event that there's a discharge to the Red Hill Creek, And then any number of agencies in the event that a discharge is to lands or waters under their jurisdiction, and that includes the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority, the Royal Botanical Gardens, or any potentially impacted conservation authority. And then finally, we would notify any local industry or impacted landowners in the area of the outfalls to the environment. So finally, this slide provides the full list of recommendations that are before you this afternoon. We're recommending that an emailed communication update be issued to the Mayor and Council at the same time that we submit the required responses for the order to the MECP provincial officer. We're recommending that all responses to the order are posted on the city's website so that they're publicly available. We're recommending that staff bring a report to committee after all the order items have been completed that identifies all program changes resulting from the order, including financial and staffing requirements. We're recommending that the implementation of the communications guideline, and we're recommending that an annual update report be provided to the Public Works Committee regarding sewage spills from City of Hamilton sewer infrastructure. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that overview, Director. If I could, colleagues, get a mover and seconder to receive the presentation, we'll open it up for discussion. Moved by Councillor Cassar, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Pauls. Okay, first up on the speakers list, we have Councillor Danko.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions on the presentation, more focusing on the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks actions and the order that was given to the City of Hamilton. So my understanding through the presentation is that the actions that are recommended before us are in response to the ministry's order. But it seems a little odd to me, and I'm not sure this is a question that staff would be able to answer. It seems odd to me that the City of Hamilton is being singled out here when every municipality that has a combined system, Toronto, Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, London, Brantford, Kingston, Windsor, Kitchener, I'm probably missing a few, would have the exact same problems. So how is the ministry addressing those problems in those other communities?
Thank you, Director.
So through you, Chair, now to the councillor, I can't answer how the ministry is dealing with other municipalities. I can certainly, say that based on my experience in the industry, there are circumstances that will have occurred historically in other municipalities. Whether or not those have all been identified and repaired or not, I can't tell you. What I can tell you is that we're dealing with an order from the ministry that we do have to respond to here.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was a question that is probably unfair for our staff, but I would maybe just put that out there in public. When the ministry is responding to Hamilton, certainly fully support the recommendations that are before us, the proactive approach that we are taking as a city to identify problem areas and to proactively report those spills and then take action. 100% support on that. But I think in the larger context of sewage spills in Ontario, we are not unique in this situation. As I said, that every single city that has an older infrastructure, the combined system, has the exact same problems that the City of Hamilton is facing. And that would be my question to the ministry is we're going to have the best performing stormwater sewage system in the entire province after this is done. What are we doing with the rest of the municipalities? Thank you.
Thank you. Next up on the speakers list, we have Councillor Crouch.
Sorry about that, just finding the mute button apparently. My question is specifically with request to the threshold for consultation and notification to different parties depending on the volume of the spill. Well, I'll preface my question by saying, we're often using metrical measurements as the indication or threshold for, for setting policy. I say this because I wonder what other considerations you have in terms of forming this policy apart from the volume that are focused on an equity and diversity and inclusion perspective. Like how are we looking at the other factors here that would ask us to, for instance, notify Indigenous stakeholders as part of this process, regardless of the threshold of the water. If I understand the matrix correctly.
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Chair Nan. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Right now, we are basing this on a metrics-based analysis, those thresholds for the 3 different scenarios, and it's based on the discovery of the 3 spills so far. Each of those would follow into one of those scenarios. It's also based on our historic experience with our sewer lateral cross-connection program, which is very similar, but that investigation and repair program deals with private sewer laterals that are connected to the wrong sewer. And it's not unusual for us to find several of those connections in a certain area of the sewer system. With regards to equity and diversity, and specifically with communications with the First Nations groups, that's something that we do intend to have conversations with them about moving forward. Through our City of Hamilton Watershed Action Plan in particular, we have engagement with all of the First Nations communities that are impacted by this as well. We are intending to reach out to our water walker community here as well. And start to build some stronger relationships there. And we do intend to ask them, and this was actually brought up in the previous term of council with respect to our combined sewer overflow and wastewater treatment plant bypass reporting website. Is that functional? Does that communication mechanism work for those groups? We haven't had an opportunity to engage in those discussions with those groups yet, but we absolutely intend to. And if there's changes that need to be made to the guideline based on their feedback, that's one of the reasons why we're recommending it as a guideline, something that can be modified moving forward. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, would it put a burden on you to, would it put a burden on staff in some way to just increase that communication holistically until you have that conversation, instead of the other way around where you're restricting the communication to one class, maybe just being over communicative, I would say, just ensuring that everyone is aware of all the different events that are happening there. Would that pose a burden or make it, is there a hardship to staff or a financial implication from that level of communication?
So through you, Chair Nan, no, there certainly wouldn't be a burden, financial or otherwise. And we can over-communicate if that's what it seems like moving forward, and then take that back if that's the desire of the First Nations communities. I can advise that when we reached out to those communities with regards to the Rutherford Avenue spill to notify them of that, we did ask them whether they would like to continue to receive notifications. We didn't receive any response, but we're happy to keep communicating until we're told that that level of information isn't necessary, or until we're able to engage in deeper discussions about what really is the most effective way to communicate.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, this just is just a suggestion I'm making, kind of in a friendly way, not trying to put a motion forward. These are guidelines. Just think that I know when we look at these different evaluatory tools and we say, okay, the guidelines are based on a metrical assessment, there's sometimes something else going on there. And so it might be helpful just to provide a holistic set of messaging, and then, you know, based on feedback, change the guidelines after that the feedback has happened. But anyways, thanks.
Thank you. There's no further speakers on the speakers list. If I could just turn the chair over to Councillor Pauls.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Councillor. Thank you, Director, for the overview, and definitely in sync with my councillor colleague who's wondering why we might be experiencing a difference compared to other provinces across cities across the province. Nonetheless, on the matrix for communications, which I really appreciate that staff took the time to put this together, it is very much taking care to tend to some of the concerns that we heard during this bill, and I really appreciate that. And from that perspective, then, I was curious about the decision around a media release only being issued under scenario C, which was under I guess, if I could, through you, get a little more thought process from the staff about waiting until it's 50-plus properties or over 500 million liters versus the other scenarios.
Director Winters?
So through you, Chair Pauls. So the decision about when to issue a media release was made in consultation with the corporate communications team. I don't have all the details, and the manager or director of that group isn't with us today, but I'm going to assume that that's based on feedback that they've received from communicating with the media in the past about when does something become something worthy of that type of notification versus a lesser notification. The scenario B that's in front of you does include an email notification to the media. But it just wouldn't be a formal media release followed by a media briefing. So in all three scenarios, all the information related to any spills that we find is going to be fully available to the community and the media. But there is that one difference between scenario B and scenario C.
Thank you for clarifying that piece about an email versus a media release. I appreciate that. That was my only question in terms of the report that's before us. I'll take back the chair. There are no other speakers indicating at this time, so if I could, it's been moved and seconded. It's time to receive the presentation, please. And that carries, and then that brings us to the report that the presentation was based on, moved by, who hasn't had a chance, Councillor Beattie, and seconded by Councillor Jackson. The report is moved and seconded. Any questions on the report that weren't raised in the presentation? Seeing none, it's before committee for approval. Councillor McMeekin and Paul's both indicating thumbs up. Did it carry? Carries, thank you. Moving on to consent items. 9.1 is the 2023 LDD moth treatment plan, report PW 21069B citywide. May I please have a mover and seconder to put this item on the agenda? Danko, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Pauls, thank you. Any discussion, or did staff want to provide an overview? What committee members? What do you prefer? Councillor Beattie, you want an overview? Yes, okay. Director Graham, please.
Hi, through the chair, I'm Cynthia Graham, Acting Director of Environmental Services. So the report before you today is to provide council with a summary of the work completed in 2022 through the LDD moth treatment plan, as well as the details of the work to be done in 2023. In 2022, we completed a series of aerial sprays to manage the impact of the pest on our city-owned trees. This past fall, staff completed surveys of the areas across the city to see what we anticipate to be the population of the moth in 2023. 2023 will not include an aerial program, as the surveys have indicated the population with the city is in decline. Although for the most part the population is declining, the surveys did indicate a few locations, particularly in Dundas, Ancaster and West Hamilton, where the localized populations will require control. So the report outlines where those are, and we have indicated in the report that those areas will be the focus of the 2023 treatment program. Since aerial spraying programs require larger swaths of affected areas to be financially effective, staff will be proceeding with ground spray program only to ensure management of the pests in those areas where it's required to protect the health of city trees. And this is an information report because we have all the authorization we need in order to proceed with the program.
Thank you, Director. Committee members, any questions? Satisfied? So then it's been moved and seconded to receive the report. Please vote electronically. Oh, my apologies. Hold the vote. Councillor Wilson, you had a question?
My apologies. I wasn't quite as fast as I was hoping to be. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Obviously, the spraying can be controversial and many folks are looking to know when this is happening. Would you just be able to walk us through the public notice requirement, especially the public notice that may or may not be occurring with respect to the sites that were identified as hotspots or of particular note? I'm thinking of Fisher Miller Park and some of the other parks mentioned in the report. Thank you so much.
Yeah, through the chair, I have our manager of forestry here that can go through the details specific, but in the past we have provided citywide notice as well as local notice for those areas that will have sprays. And so I'll just turn it over to Robin Pollard for additional details.
Thanks. Through the chair, Robin Pollard, Manager of Forestry and Horticulture. So to define, because we're not doing an aerial spray, we don't have to get a overarching MECP permit. So we won't be going through that process this year. This is just a tree by tree ground spray program. The trees that we will be ground spraying are within parks areas. So we'll be notifying the parks and any other operational groups. There won't be any overspray onto any residential areas. However, our communication plan will have a buffer zone from areas that will be sprayed. We'll decide on what that buffer zone is and go out from there and inform the residents. That'll be through mailouts. So they'll get it to their house. We've done that in the past. Similar to in the past, we've done postcards. So small postcard goes into the mail, and we put it out to any of the residents that are within that buffer zone. So we'll be doing that again this year.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you so much. And if residents are reaching out to any of our offices with questions about this process, what are some of the, obviously we have an invasive species and need to deal with it and need to use the measures that we can be using to deal with it. What are some of the maybe consequences or in this balance that we find of using this chemical? Are there any negative impacts to human health to be aware of? Any negative impacts to the environment to be aware of that residents may be reaching out to our offices with questions about so we can just answer them directly?
Yeah, through the chair. So in terms of the pesticide that'll be used, it's the exact same pesticide we've used in the past, so the communication would be the same. So I would suggest that anybody who's reaching out with any type of concerns, if it's something that you can point them towards our website, or the City of Hamilton website, so it's just hamilton.ca/LDD. That's the short form. That's going to provide any information about the pest, the pesticide being used, the timing of the sprays, the locations of the sprays, any concerns to human health or to pet health or waterways or anything like that. That's all addressed there. This is a biological pesticide, so it comes from a soil-borne bacteria. It does not have harmful effects on humans. In terms of its target, it's Lepidoptera, so butterflies, is the only pest that it actually affects. Obviously, there would be side effects to anything else that depends on Lepidoptera for their food source, but other than that, there's no effect.
Thank you. Councillor?
I don't know if that fully answers it.
That actually does fully answer the question, and apology, I wasn't trying to be leading, but you do get into kind of the piece of this. So there's a big impact, not necessarily to human health, but maybe to other pollinators or butterflies, Lepidoptera. Is there any kind of screening that will be done before, after, or is obviously we have to put this down at a time when the LDD moth will be out. Are there any impacts to other species that we're maybe trying to create habitat for in our parks? It seems like it's pretty targeted to the trees, so maybe just getting a confirmation of how targeted this application is and any impacts that may arise.
Yes. Through the chair. So this is the point of going ground spray, is to ensure that we're spraying in areas that need to be sprayed only on the target trees. So it limits the impact to the other Lepidoptera that could be affected. Most Lepidoptera are not feeding on trees. The ones that you're talking about would be like meadow species and that sort of thing. So we're limiting the impact to other butterflies by spraying trees only. We're also spraying early in the year. So there is a very minimal amount of actual Lepidoptera moth type insects at that time, again limiting it. And the threshold for actually utilizing this pesticide has to have been met. We've gone out, we've looked at these trees, they do require control. So that's it's a criteria of, we have to meet all of these criteria before we decide to use this pesticide, even though it is an organic biological pesticide.
Thank you. Councillor, satisfied?
Thank you so much. Those were all my questions. And I think being able to pass on those answers to residents who have questions or who are concerned about, you know, I think oftentimes, especially the year after the aerial spray, folks want to know that this is being done as specific as possible, while also understanding there's a deep need. So just really, really appreciate that clarification. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Next up, we have Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I was actually going to ask some similar questions to my colleague, and thank you to staff for the very formative answers, and of course, thank you to Councillor Alex Wilson for delving into this. I looked at this and went, oh, they're using 4A48. Oh, well, that's a great product. I'm familiar with it because it's a product that I use on a regular basis in my professional career outside of City Hall. So I didn't think anything of it until I realized that many people wouldn't know what this product actually is about and what it's used for. So thank you for staff for unpacking that. I'm wondering, in terms of the messaging, just how deep does the public-facing message go into explaining fully how these products are used? You mentioned, Director, that there was some information put up on the website. Is it a high level, or does it kind of dig down into some of the operational components of the product itself? And I know I'm not coming across terribly clear. I just am trying to make sure that folks don't think that we're using some old school organophosphate material, that this is a highly advanced product that's being used in a targeted fashion. And I just want to make sure that that is clear in our communications.
Councillor, I was about to send you the link in the chat, but nonetheless, to the staff.
Through the chair, thanks for the question. So in the communication that we put together last year as a resource to councillors, we can send that out again in case you do have questions from your constituents and want to be able to provide them. I believe we put together a communication package last year, so we can send that out again. To specifically answer the question about the detail, we do try to put it in plain language so that it's an understandable piece of document. If people do want more information, we could put links to some more product information and more technical detail, but we generally don't include that. We try to put the information in plain language so that it's understandable to people who don't have science degrees.
Councillor?
Perfect, thank you. Through you, Chair. LDD moth populations have natural ebb and flow to them. They expand rapidly and then they start to deflate over a period of time. I'm wondering, through you, Chair, if staff can give us maybe an indication on the scale of that ebb and flow. Whereabouts are we right now?
Where are we in the cycle?
Through the chair. At this point, where we believe that we are, and again, to your point, Councillor, yes, they do have ebbs and flows, but unfortunately we're dealing with a very large area. So we're dealing with multiple different populations, which all have multiple different ebbs and flows, so we kind of generalize it. At this point, we are in a decline. We've consulted with quite a few other municipalities, Toronto, Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington, some of the conservation and large landowners, so the RBG, Halton, and Hamilton Conservation, they're all reporting the same thing, all a decline. So I would confidently say the population within this general area is within a decline, but again, we have some localized populations, very small localized populations that have increased.
Thank you. Councillor?
That's excellent. That's the end of my questions. Thank you so much, Chair.
Excellent. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, yeah? And now it's time to vote.
Councillor Cratcher, are you able to vote? You are muted.
He's just nodding his head.
You voted.
Yes, he's able to.
Okay, that is carried. Thank you. On to 9.2, Scenic Reservoir Plan Maintenance Non-Event, PW 23012, wards 1, 2, 13, and 15. Please have a mover and seconder to receive it so we can open up for discussion. And Director Winters is available, as well as Manager of Food and Water and Safety. Manager McDonald is also available for questions. So moved by? Thank you, Councillor Cassar, seconded by? Who hasn't had a chance yet? Councillor Pauls, there you go. Any questions on this one, folks? We're not seeing any?
No one.
Oh, nobody. Okay. This was that coding, right? That was previously reported on. Virtual councillors, have you had a chance to vote? And it carries, okay. Moving on to discussion items. First up is 11.1, White Brick Church Cemetery, PW Report 22050A. Director of Environmental Services, Director Graham.
Thank you. Through the chair, Cynthia Graham, Acting Director of Environmental Services. So just a quick overview of this report. This is a follow-up report from a staff report that was brought forward to Public Works Committee on June 13th, 2022. For some background, for some councillors who may be unfamiliar with the regulation of cemeteries, I'll just give a quick review of how oversight of cemeteries works. The Bereavement Authority of Ontario is the delegated authority that administers provisions of the Funeral, Burial and Cremation Services Act in 2002 on behalf of the Ministry of Public and Business Services Delivery. The Act and associated Ontario regulations, specifically Ontario Regulation 30-11, provides that an abandoned cemetery become the responsibility of the local municipality. White Brick Church was deemed abandoned by the BAO and was therefore flagged to us for assumption. A municipality may voluntarily accept the transfer of responsibility for a cemetery together with the transfer of the land on which the cemetery is situated. Alternatively, the municipality or the Crown, the register or the owner-operator of the cemetery may apply to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice for an order of abandonment, which results in the municipality being required to take ownership and care responsibilities for the cemetery. So either way, it lands with the municipality. At its June 13th, 2022 meeting, Public Works Committee tabled report PW 22050, referring to the voluntary acceptance of ownership of the operation of White Brick Church Cemetery until further discussions were held with the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, the City of Hamilton Parks and Cemetery staff, the City Councillor, and the current operators of the cemetery. The meeting resulted in a reasonable consensus that agreed that the city could take on ownership of the cemetery and then work with the current operators to continue maintenance under the guidance of the city's cemetery staff. So at this time, we're not anticipating any operating impacts because the agreement would have the current managers continue with the maintenance. However, in the future, if those managers are not able to continue, then staff have identified future operating funds that would be required at that time to take on the maintenance. The voluntary acceptance of the cemetery is the least costly of the options that will result in the same outcome. Legislatively, the city is only required to accept the cemetery burial land area. The church located on the property is still actively used, and it's not the desire of the staff to acquire the building. Cemetery and real estate staff will work with the BAO and the current landowners to establish a new property boundary for the transfer of the cemetery lands only to city ownership. And I'm happy to have any questions.
Thank you. Can I get a mover and seconder to put the report on the table, and then we can open it up for discussion? Moved by Councillor Cassar, seconded by Councillor Pauls. Any questions at this time? Oh, Councillor Danko. Oh, sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah, so I've been briefed on this. We've had a conversation. I'm fully aligned with the recommendation, least cost, and a great situation where community members are going to continue maintaining it, so no cost to the city. So I have no concerns.
Okay, on to you, Councillor Danko.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to puzzle out why the city is getting involved here and what the likelihood is that at some point we're going to end up taking on a $67,500 annual operating cost for the cemetery. So it seems that we're likely going to be taking that on either way.
Director.
Through the chair, the city will be given the responsibility of oversight of the cemetery, whether we voluntarily take it or whether it gets applied to the Superior Court of Justice. The result will be the same, that the city takes it on.
Thank you. So I can accept the staff recommendation that this is the least cost option to get there. However, I'm a little bit still confused that we have an existing church, a congregation that is still in use, so they own that property, but then would be transferring this annual expense to City Hamilton taxpayers. So is there, and legislatively, I believe they were supposed to have a fund to maintain this cemetery in perpetuity, in which case they're not able or willing to do that. Is there no recourse that we can have for taxpayers against the church congregation and or property there, which presumably still has value, that is owned privately?
Thank you, Councillor. Over to staff.
Through the chair, I'm actually going to refer that question to Kara Bunn, who's the manager of Parks and Cemeteries, as she has more detailed knowledge of the Care and Maintenance Fund and the legislation with respect to those questions.
Thank you. Manager?
Through the chair, Kara Bunn, manager of Parks and Cemeteries. Unfortunately, there isn't a recourse for us. The legislation is clear that if something is being mismanaged or abandoned, that the BAO has the authority to put that burden onto taxpayers and the municipality.
Councillor?
Thank you. So again, I can accept the staff recommendation. I appreciate that this is a difficult position. However, just reiterate my concern and sort of the unfair position that taxpayers are being asked here, where you have mismanaged or whatever the reason was that they don't have this fund available, they still own a property that has value, but we have no recourse, and that $67,500 annual cost ends up being downloaded to municipal taxpayers through no fault of the city. Very frustrating. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no other, Councillor Pauls.
Yes, I just want to ask, through the chair, I just heard that there was no cost, and now we're hearing that there will be a cost. When will that cost incur to the city?
Thank you, Director.
Through the chair, at this time, because the current land managers are willing to continue to maintain the property. There is no anticipated operating costs to the city. If for some reason in the future they're not able to take on that maintenance anymore, at that point, that's when the anticipated $67,000 in operating costs would be required in order for staff to maintain this property.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. And again, right now is $67,000 if we were to look after it. And right now they're looking after it. I'm wondering if in the future, would that amount increase because of the mismanagement that they're doing or the way they operate? We don't know how they operate and why there is the $67,000, but sort of say, will it increase in the future?
Thank you, Director.
Through the chair, the $67,000 is in 2023 dollars. So with inflation and increased gas prices and costs of equipment and things, yes, we can anticipate that in the future that cost would increase with those factors. My understanding of the current maintenance practices of the land managers is reasonable at this time. So we're not anticipating that we would be taking over the maintenance of a derelict cemetery and require a lot of capital input. That cost would just be for our staff and equipment to take on the maintenance if required some point in the future.
Thank you. Councillor?
I thank you for that. And there's a lot more questions that I'm not clear, but I guess this is legislative. We have to do it. So I'm glad there's no cost now. But anyways, that's for questions to ask later on. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no other speakers at this time, it's been moved and seconded and in front of committee for vote.
Councillor McMeekin, are you able to vote?
And that carries. Moving on to 11.2, which is accessible transportation services and the disabled and age regional transportation service policy, PW 23009 citywide. May I please have Director of Transit introduce the report?
Thank you, through the chair. At the March 2022 GIC, the committee recommended that staff review existing policies to allow for drivers to assist with bundle buggies on the contracted service for persons with disabilities. Currently, the external contractor has customer-facing policies in place, but over time, it is in the intent of Accessible Transportation Services to develop and implement its own policies. As such, we reviewed both the existing policy of the contractor and the ATS draft policy. It was determined that both policies met the legislative requirement under the Ontarians with Disabilities Act and are consistent with expectations of professional drivers, whose primary obligations are the safe operation of a vehicle and securement of a person's personal mobility device, but does not include assisting passengers with personal effects, which could include bundle buggies or carts, bags, and luggage. This is a consistent level of service between the contractor, conventional service, or traditional HSR buses, and as we look forward towards integrated services and transit LRT, it would be the same there also. It is important to provide a consistent level of service for the customer experience, which helps us avoid opportunities for conflicts between the operator and a customer if some drivers do provide a different level of service than others. An industry scan was conducted, and the policies are consistent with predominant policies in the space of accessible public transit, and as such, no changes are recommended.
Thank you. It is open for, no, we need a mover and second to put it on the floor, and then it is moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Crutch, and Councillor Jackson is our first on the speakers list.
Thanks, Chair Nan, and thank you, Director Cozen. He just refreshed my memory, and maybe for the brand new members of committee and council as well. What sparked this? Was this about people bringing buggies and their shopping carts and things like that, that some drivers had, operators had concerns over? Just through you, Chair Nan, just refresh our memory, please, Director.
Through the chair, there was an individual who raised the concern about being able to travel with a bundle buggy on the contracted service, specifically the belief that drivers should assist with the boarding and deboarding of the bundle buggy.
Also, it was more about the driver assisting, through you, Chair Nan, with that individual versus the individual being allowed to bring the packages on the bus.
Through the chair.
Or the darts
correct.
van.
It's the expectation that the driver assist with people's personal effects.
And you did an impartial, did I read an impartial third-party review, through Chair Nan? And that's my last question to the Director.
Through the chair, we checked in with peer transit agencies in the GTHA and in Ontario that are known to us that offer similar services.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that, Chair Nan. Thanks, Director.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing nobody else indicating for questions, it's before Councillor Danko.
Sorry, Chair.
No
So just so I'm clear as well, so the recommendation is no change to policy, so drivers will not assist with bundle buggies or any other possessions of riders. They're responsible.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you. And what is the recommended procedure then if a rider perhaps uses a bundle buggy or other method of transporting groceries or whatever it is, and wants to maintain their independence, what do we recommend if they're not able to handle that on their own?
Through the chair. Anybody traveling on accessible transit services is able to bring with them a support person who travels for no fare, who can provide assistance with personal effects, bundle buggies, shopping, bags, luggage, etc.
Thank you. And just so I'm absolutely clear, that recommendation to bring a support person that travels with no fare, that is consistent with other jurisdictions and is also compliant with all regulations, and we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's on that.
Through the chair, it is a legislative requirement, so it is consistent everywhere.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, councillors. So seeing no other speakers or requests.
I wanted to speak.
Oh, my apologies, Councillor McMeekin. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay. My question was, what's the total investment we make in accessible transportation and the DART system?
Just a moment, Councillor.
Through
Big
the chair,
question.
one moment, please. The numbers differ broadly between pre-COVID and sort of current ridership, and allow me to confer with the manager of accessible services. Michelle Martin is on the line and would be able to specifically answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, through the chair. The total passenger trips delivered in 2022 rounded up roughly 455,000 total passenger trips delivered in 2022.
At what cost?
Roughly 23 million, 24 million. I'm just looking quickly through for the final total, but that's around the amount.
Okay, to tell you why it's come a bit of a history buff, and I was there in 1977 when Marjorie Baskin and her group came and asked us to take on create a new service called DARTS, and I think the service was provided then at a total cost of about $17,000 a year.
Wow.
So we've come a long way, and admitted we have a fairly substantial time, but I remember it was kind of like income tax. It was just going to be a temporary system, but obviously it was far more than that, and the service was much more prophetic in terms of its need. Anyhow, I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you, Councillor McMeekin. I will also share 1977, huh? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I won't tell you what year I was born. Moving on then, we have it moved and seconded. All questions in history on the record. We are proceeding with the vote, please. And that carries, thank you. Moving on to 11.3, appropriation transfer of funds for Kenilworth Transmission Water Main Renewal, PW Report 23010, moved by Councillor Jackson, seconded by Councillor Francis. Any questions? Councillor Jackson.
I like the way you automatically, when certain items are there, Chair Nan. Thank you. I appreciate that acknowledgement. Through you, I want to congratulate and thank very much our new Director of Engineering, Director Jackie Kennedy, and through our fairly new General Manager, Carlisle Can, for bringing this forward. A couple of questions through you. I think this is very important to state publicly, Director Kennedy, that even though the price of this project has gone up considerably and you need roughly another $2.4 million for an overall cost of about $5 million plus contingency, this is important in light of what's been discovered with the main water main that services close to 170,000 residents of Hamilton Mountain, of which about a quarter of that is my residents on the East Mountain community. So this is much necessary to continue to provide that pristine water supply. Through you, Chair Nan, to the Director for that confirmation and maybe just some further elaboration on what the project will entail.
Thank you, Councillor. And my enthusiastic response to your enthusiastic thumbs up, I forgot to let Director Kennedy provide an overview. So if you wanted to still certainly answer Councillor Jackson's question, if there's anything else you want to take time to add, please do so.
Thank you. Director Jackie Kennedy of Engineering Services. Through the chair, the work that we're doing here is an external repair of about 283 meters of the Kenilworth transmission main. Will be replacement of some platforms and stairs, manhole frame and cover, as well as some existing concrete pipe supports. Most importantly, stripping of the outer polyurea coating and restoration of the external corrosion barrier along the horizontal section of the pipe. An application of an external glass fiber reinforced wrap to areas of significant deterioration. So the removal of the external corrosion barrier is approximately 227 meters, and the external wrap is approximately 39 meters, as well as then the restoration of the site. So this is specialized work that requires contractors who are qualified to do the work. It was sent out as a request for proposal with a qualifications component as well as pricing. The bids came in, and the highest scoring contractor's bid was above budget, which is why we're here today asking for the reallocation. It had been previously issued in 2020 as a request for tender. That also came in high. We only got one bid at that time, and so it was again over budget back in 2020, and so the procurement then was canceled. So this is our second run at this work. It's now that much later and that much more urgent to get the work done. We are looking at this point at doing it in two phases, where we're going to do the urgent repairs now during the lower water demand season, and then come back in the winter months next year to do the complete repairs. So that is part of the reason for the increased cost as well at this time. Did that answer your question?
That was a wonderful, elaborate explanation that kind of encompassed my question, Director Kennedy. Thank you so much. And through you, Chair Dan, could I publicly state that overall this will continue to provide and sustain pristine drinking water to the mountain community? Is that comment in order through you, Chair Nan?
Through the chair, I would say yes, but I would defer to my colleagues to the right of me on that point as the water folks.
Senior Director Winters, please.
Through you, Chair Nan, to Councillor Jackson. Emphatically, yes, this is one of the most critical water mains in our inventory, given its function to supply water to the mountain. This work is critical. I appreciate Director Kennedy's team's creativity to be able to get this work done in a timely manner for us.
And Chair Nan, through you to either director, my understanding is for the increased 2.4 amount, approximately money is being reallocated within one of your budgets, please, through you, Chair Nan, for public consumption. Whoever wants to answer that, where the additional funding's coming from.
Through the chair, that's correct. It would be transferred from the Waterworks Capital Reserve.
Wonderful. Chair Nan, just to conclude again, thank you so much to new Director Kennedy being so proactive and putting this high on the priority list and the radar. And again, to wrap up, as you would know, Chair Nan, from the last term of council, I consider it as part and parcel of the important supply of clean water to the mountain community. If you recall, last year the council was supportive of about $6 million to remove contaminated soil that was on the perimeter of the Kenilworth Reservoir, and that project ended up being completed and successfully concluded. And once again, as more environmental concerns are before us, especially with healthy drinking water and the availability and supply of it to our 560,000 citizens, this work is additionally extremely salient, and I'm very grateful and very happy to move it. Thank you, Chair Nan.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Danko, please.
Thank you, Chair. This project is maybe the third or fourth major capital project that's come forward that we've had to approve additional funding for because the original budget that was approved was exceeded. And in this case, it's 171%. So a really substantial amount that's beyond what the original budget total was. So, you know, considering when it was originally tendered in 2020 with only one bid, obviously that's not ideal either. But, you know, I'm seeing a recurring trend here, Chair Nan, that projects have an estimate, you know, considering all the uncertainty in the construction industry, certainly the challenges with procurement and having contractors that are available to do the work, but also just the importance of getting our estimating right in the first place. And I'm not sure if there's a question there, but it's just, you know, obviously it's not ideal having to come back to committee to bump up budgets, especially in this magnitude.
Thank you. Staff response? Yeah, General Manager.
Through the chair, Carl Alcan, General Manager of Public Works. To the councillor, councillor, you're absolutely right. We are seeing more and more of this. As we continue to look at conceptual designs and we start to build out and go into detailed design, every step of the way we're going to refine our budgets. We're also going to build what I would call a database of unit prices and costs so that we know kind of where it is. And we're working with our municipal colleagues to also see where they're at so that we know that we're getting a fair price at the end of the day. I know Director Kennedy and Director Winters and I, we're looking at promoting the projects that are happening in Hamilton, trying to bring fresh new people here and a more competitive edge to what's happening here. And we continue to make those strides as we move forward.
Thank you.
Either director, if you'd like to add to that.
Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's lots of work going on in the city of Hamilton. Thank you.
It certainly is. Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. No further speakers. So it is before committee for approval. And that carries. Next up is motions. First up, we have 12.1, removal of a city-owned tree located at 1415 Trinity Church Road in Hamilton in Ward 11. Councillor Jackson, I understand that you're going to be introducing the motion on behalf of Councillor Tattison.
Chair Nan, you are absolutely correct. However, the original seconder that Councillor Tattison, who's not a voting member of committee, had sought, I believe, has had some other obligations, Councillor Spatafora. So I'm leaving it to see if someone else would be willing to second the motion.
Councillor Pauls as indicated.
Oh, Councillor Pauls and Councillor Beattie and Councillor Francis. Wonderful. If the clerks could note all three of them, please. Thank you very much. Moved by myself, seconded by Ward 7 Councillor Esther Pauls. Removal of the city-owned tree at 1415 Trinity Church Road. Ward 11. Whereas the owner of that particular site indicates they experience sightline concerns and impediments to delivery safely entering and exiting their property from the large city-owned tree located at their property, and whereas the owner of that property has expressed their desire to the ward councillor and has previously appealed to forestry staff to have the city-owned tree removed, therefore be it resolved, A, that forestry staff be directed to remove the city-owned tree located at 1415 Trinity Church Road, and B, that forestry staff be directed to waive all tree removal permit and loss of canopy fees for the removal of the city-owned tree located at that address, and to fund the tree removal costs through the forestry section operating budget. Chair Nan, I will now turn it over to the ward councillor, but I'll just say, when he asked me to do this, I thought I'd do my own site visit. I saw what the situation is, more than supportive, and I told him I'd be happy to move it with his permission. Thank you, Chair Nan.
Thank you. And is tradition, if we have a visiting councillor to a committee for whom a motion is being sponsored, that they be given an opportunity to speak. So please do. Councillor Tattison.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity to speak on this matter. I'm aware of the Tree Protection Act, but after 29 years in dealing with the Education Act in schools, I'm aware that there's always mitigating circumstances. And I'm hoping that my fellow councillors will hear me out on that. So I became aware of this issue through several phone calls, and then, like a good councillor, I went to visit myself, and I asked the resident to share with me her lived experiences and why she felt it was necessary to have the tree removed. Without hesitation, she said that she felt that exiting and entering her driveway was endangering her safety and her children's safety. There's two issues that surround the tree, or that are around this tree. One is in exiting the driveway. The constituent sees the tree as an object that blocks her view to the south when she's exiting. I've driven to the location myself. I've looked at it, and when you are exiting the driveway, the tree does come into view, and it does prevent an obstructed view to the road at a certain point when you're exiting. I drive an SUV, and I think that, and when I drove straight out facing, I could see what she was talking about. However, I'd also say that if I was driving a delivery vehicle, such as a UPS van, and I was attempting to back out, that there would be, it would present an even greater visual impediment. Again, if I were to, looking at it through the lens of the resident, again, leaving myself at one or two times from that driveway, if I were to use the lens of the resident who probably travels inward and outward of this driveway over 1,000 times a year, I think it would become an issue for me. The other issue that I'd like to speak to is entering the driveway, coming towards traveling south. The driveway lies at the bottom of a hill, a slight hill. The resident has relayed this to me numerous times, that she has actually been turning and waiting for oncoming traffic, attempting to turn, waiting for oncoming traffic, and vehicles approaching from behind, moving very quickly, and causing almost accidents to the point where she could hear screeching brakes. I think what in the overall goal for her is at some point to actually shift her driveway down her property line towards further south, so that the cars that sometimes travel in excess of 100 kilometers an hour down this road have a chance to see her more accurately. So in saying those two things, I'd just like the fellow councillors who sit on this committee to consider again the lived experiences of my resident, and to take that into consideration when they're weighing that against the protection of the tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So we have a speakers list. First up is Councillor Danko, then followed by Councillor Crutch.
Thank you. New term, first tree motion. Can I ask through you, Madam Chair, when there is a request from a resident that a city tree, for whatever the reason is, should be removed, what is the process that our staff go through to determine if that tree can be supported to be removed or not?
Thank you.
Through the chair, Cynthia Graham, Acting Director of Environmental Services. So at a high level, request comes in and it's logged in our work system. Investigator is sent to the site to review the health of the tree and the location of the tree and all of the conditions around that. They create a report back and log the results in the system, and then there is a follow-up with the resident about the conditions and the decisions around that request.
Thank you. And I don't mean this as any disrespect to Councillor Tattison or Councillor Jackson moving this on his behalf, but this is something that's been, I'd say, ongoing the previous term of council and is now continuing, and it's a little thing, but I think just as a governance body, when we're relying on our professional staff to evaluate whether whatever the asset is appropriate or not, these kinds of things come forward all the time, and there's a number of reasons why this tree cannot be there: sight lines, allergies, roots damaging driveways, pipes. They're messy, they can't be maintained, or they just don't like it. Comes forward routinely, and we rely on our staff to assess the situation to determine if the tree should be removed or not. And then it then falls to the councillor if the resident doesn't get the answer that they wanted to hear from staff, and then this motion or motions like this come forward. So again, no disrespect to my committee colleagues, but I'm not going to be voting in support of this out of principle, because I have turned down, I don't know how many times people have requested the same thing for whatever their reasons are. And if they were to remove this tree out of their own means, maybe I could ask that, what would happen? There would be a fine and a fee.
Just a second as the manager makes their way to the table.
Through the chair, Manager of Forestry and Horticulture, Robin Pollard. The process, if they did it without a tree removal permit, so if they did it without a tree removal permit, it would be in contravention to the public tree bylaw. So there would be an investigation. If the investigation showed that they were in fact responsible, MLE would go out and at this point probably issue a fine. I couldn't tell you what it was or what it would be, but they would be issuing a fine.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. And just a final point, I mean, we do have an urban forestry strategy with a significant deficiency in urban tree canopy cover. Notwithstanding, this is a rural property in a rural area. I think overall, as a municipality, I think we need to be consistent with how we apply our goals for the city, and also how we apply the policies and the bylaws that we have in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We have a lengthy speakers list. So following Councillor Crutch, we have Councillor Cassar, Councillor A. Wilson, and then Councillor Pauls. So Councillor Crutch.
Hi. And everyone knows trees are my favorite. So I have some thoughts. Councillor Danko kind of said some of the things I was thinking too. And I guess for me, the hard part here, unless I'm missing something, and I very well may be, it happens, is that I don't see a space or a place for staff inside of this motion. It's like what I see being said is, right? And again, this is my first time encountering a remove tree type decision. What I see here is something like, whereas basically people have appealed to forestry staff and forestry staff said no, so let it be known that the ward councillor says do it. And that's how I'm reading this. And what I'm not seeing though is like also a matrix from staff here, like an appendice saying like, well, here's the decisions matrix we used to decide that this appeal we had previously was not an appeal we would undertake. So like I don't have the extra information here, right? Because I'm sure there's times when our staff say things and we say, okay, fair enough, like we disagree and that's our prerogative as a governing body, but I don't actually see the evidence here. And I'm not going to just take a verbal report from staff because I think that's actually hard for me. I would actually like to see an analysis of why. Also, I did my due diligence too, just not in person. I went on Google Maps and I went and I looked and checked out the trees and checked out the property. And I kind of had a couple thoughts about, I wonder if they could be mitigated by doing this, or I wonder if you change where the driveway entered and exited, you could do that. Or I wonder if there's a big space over here. What if the person egressed and through that space? Like, I don't even know, right? So that's where I'm at. I'm also not going to support this. I don't think it's something that I have enough information to support. I think in the spirit of trying to gather more information and have a wholesome conversation, it'd be better to withdraw the motion and bring it back with that wholesome analysis from staff and have a discussion then, rather than just voting it down now or voting it up now. I just think that's not a bad idea. So I'm just putting that to the mover as a suggestion. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Kassar.
Thank you, Chair Nan. Yeah, similar comments to Councillor Danko and Councillor Kretsch. I'm looking at pictures too and opportunities for mitigation. It looks like maybe the tree could be trimmed for improved visibility. Don't really understand what's blocking. But besides being a tree guy myself, the issue is safety. I understand that. What I heard in comments is it's traffic coming down the road at up to 100 kilometers an hour. So the issue here is not that there's a tree in the way. The issue here is that we have engineered roads that are allowing speeds that are dangerous in a residential area. So, we could fix a tree now and take that out, if that was what needed to be done. However, it doesn't address the root issue for other people who are pulling out, new drivers that aren't paying attention, cyclists, dark and rainy areas. The problem here is the road it's long and straight and narrow and encourages very high rate of speed, and that's what needs to be fixed. So, not to get on a pedestal here, but if we're really looking at safety and that's what we're trying to achieve, that's what we need to be fixing here. So I would echo the comments Councillor Kretsch made about being maybe more thoughtful about this and what the right long-term solution is here. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, we have Councillor A. Wilson, followed by Councillor Pauls, and then I'll add myself to the speakers list.
Yeah, just jumping in on the past couple of comments that have been made, I do have a question for staff. And apologies if I've missed this. What was the original rationale from staff? There were some issues with the tree. We've gone through a couple of these in rural areas in Ward 13. Generally, there is if any service work needs to be done. So in any initial assessments by staff, was a servicing plan developed? Is my first question.
Through the chair, the initial request came in as a driveway application. And staff visited to look at it as a driveway application. It would have been a widening at that point. We denied it at that point. To have gone through the application for a driveway, it would have been more than one tree. I believe it was 4 to have widened the driveway. So that was denied. When it came back to us, it was a sightline issue, at which point we sent it over to traffic to review for a sightline issue, and they confirmed that there was no sightline issue. So at that point, we verified that the tree met all of our standards. It's in good condition. It's elevated to a point in which it meets our clearances. It's not diseased. Therefore, removal wouldn't be warranted.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. And my last question is, do you have an estimated, or do we have an estimated age of the tree through that on-site visit and that work? Thank you.
Through the chair, you're going to test my knowledge. It's about a 35 centimeter white cedar. They're not overly easy to estimate, but let's say 40 years. They age fairly slowly, so I'm guesstimating at this point.
It's about 40 years, Councillor.
Oh, I appreciate that, especially with the white cedar complications. No, those are all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councillor Pauls.
And thank you. And I will be supporting Councillor Tadison. And the reason is this. First of all, I want to say that I love trees. And if I did a survey of all of Hamilton, they all love trees. But we always talk about live experienced. I don't live there. I don't live at that house. But I was talking to Councillor Tadison, and he said that there is a hill, and you do not see the car until the car goes over. So, and he also told me that he went there, and when he went there, he had problem coming out. So we all, councillors, we all talk about safety. We talk, I don't know if this family has children. We always talk about safety of the roads. We always talk safety of everything we do here in Hamilton, and it's very, very important. So I'm asking, if the councillor lives there, he went there, he had a problem, he says there's a hill coming down, I think we should consider that. And I also want to consider the people that live there. That's every day. It's not just one day that they go out and there's one car. It could be every day for them. I don't live there. And that is the reason why I will support it, because it's that residents' lived experience every day. And we always talk about lived experience. So, and that is my reason why I'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And then while your microphone's on, just hold on.
I will take the chair and go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So if I could, through you to staff, the adjacent properties also have similar trees on them, that are city-owned trees on their properties, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Are they also similar age and size and location from the driveway to the road? And this is when it does get challenging, because now I'm asking staff to provide verbal reports on an issue that otherwise could have been coming through in a report.
Through the chair, I'd have to report back on that. As I haven't been to the site myself, I'd be relying on staff reports, and I don't have that information.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I can refer to the sightline issue. Mike Fields is on, if we can have him speak to the sightline issue.
Sure, go for it.
Through the chair. Is that all right? Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you. I think.
Awesome. Sorry.
Said yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you. Mike Field, Acting Director of Transportation Operations and Maintenance. At request of Environmental Services, the roadway safety team went and looked at the tree and applied best practices as far as visibility triangles and sightlines. Did not see any concerns with the placement of the tree as it pertains to the safe visibility of drivers entering and exiting the driveway, and it's not dissimilar to other driveways on Trinity Church Road or other rural roadways within the city.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you for that response. And through you, Chair, I appreciate Councillor Tadison bringing it forward, and I also appreciate everybody else around the table who's talking about the need to contextualize our decision-making based on the lived experiences of residents. I'll definitely remember the amount of support there is for that framework. And I also have a challenge here because in proximity to this location, there are 3 other houses with very similar driveways where the tree line, according to my non-technical assessment on Google's Maps, it looks like a very similar situation, and we're not hearing from those residents about the need to remove these trees for sightline reasons. and appreciating that the actual concern is that the owner of the property would like to expand their driveway. So that is clarifying for me, and unfortunately, I did not appreciate the practice last term of motions to remove trees without having an opportunity for staff to bring a report and hearing from staff about why they weren't able to support the request from residents. I think it creates consistency problems for us as a term of council moving forward. Certainly won't be able to support it today and won't be supporting it moving forward. Thank you. I'll take back the chair. Thanks, Councillor Councillor Pauls.
Go ahead.
It's been a day. So we have no more speakers. It's been moved and seconded, and it's before committee for consideration. Oh, my apologies. That has been defeated 4-6.
Chair, did you mean to vote yes?
Yeah, Councillor Nan, I'm a little confused now. You voted yes, but I thought I heard you say you did not want to support it. So did I?
That's correct.
Should I redo the vote or?
My apologies. I'll admit I'm a little bit operating on autopilot right now just because I haven't had breakfast, haven't had lunch, and we're at 4:20, so I'm losing it. Huh?
Well,
stop it. Come on. Order. Help me out here. Order. Clerks, if I could, please, before we move on. My apologies. We're revoting.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
can you hear me? It's Ted here, Ted McMeekin.
I can hear you.
I actually voted against and I was shown as a yay.
Huh. Well, you have an opportunity to vote again, Councillor. The vote is up live.
Oh, well, that's refreshing. Thank you for that.
Defeated, 2-8. Moving on to 12.2, investment in Trace Bocce Club, Ward 8. If I could, please, Councillor, introduce your motion and your seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Nan. New term, new Bocce Club motion. So I'm not sure who would like to second this. Councillor Jackson, thank you. So this is for investment in the Trieste Bocce Club at 60 DeCenzo Drive. Whereas the majority of City of Hamilton-owned facilities and parks assets in Ward 8 are maintained by the city's Facilities Operations and Maintenance section of Energy, Fleet, and Facilities Management Division, whereas members of the Trieste Bocce Club located at 60 DeCenzo Drive are requesting rolling door options to provide a more sheltered environment against the cold and rain to extend the bocce playing season, and whereas potential issues identified including structural concerns with the building due to increased dead and live loads from rolling door and fire and life safety ingress and egress of the property, AODA requirements, airflow, heating, ventilation, air conditioning requirements. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be authorized and directed to retain the professional services to determine the feasibility of enclosing the Trieste Bocce Club located at 60 DeCenzo Drive, Hamilton, with rolling doors to be funded from the Ward 8 Area Rating Reserve account to an upset limit of $2,500, and that the Ward 8 Area Rating Reserve account be used as required to an upset limit of $25,000 to fund the investigation of options to determine next steps, including design options, entrance and exits, overhead lighting, HVAC systems, construction cost estimation, etc., for the Trieste Bocce Club, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized and directed to execute any required agreements and ancillary documents. So just a quick summary of this request. The Trieste Bocce Club is a very active organization in Ward 8 with a number of mainly seniors members. It is a very important source of recreation for residences, not just in Ward 8, but a lot of them come from across the city. It's an important social gathering place and, a way for, again, primarily seniors to be active in the community, and also that, especially coming out of COVID, have that personal contact with each other. So for the beginning of last term, the club has been looking at opportunities to improve the facilities. Ideally, they're looking to enclose the court. They've looked at options for a brand new build, and of course, to rebuild the entire facility would be fairly expensive and beyond the means that I could fund through the Ward 8 Area Rating Reserve, and also through the capital budget. It would be a significant investment for the city. So what is being proposed here is an option to, there's two courts, and the one has a steel-framed structure over it. And in the past, I think it was 2016, 2017, there was a set of rolling doors that was installed on one end, and then another portion of the wall had kind of been informally enclosed over time. So what we're looking at, what the club would like to see is if the other walls could be similarly enclosed with a rolling garage door type system, which would then allow them to extend their playing season and bring some more comfort to the environment for residents that would like to continue meeting there on past when the court would otherwise be closed. So this is a bit of a compromise option. What staff came forward with is there are some concerns with doing that. So first of all, is the building capable of supporting the loading for that? And then also, if we were to essentially enclose the building on a temporary basis with these rolling doors, it would essentially then enclose the structure. So there could be HVAC, heating and cooling requirements, and also access and egress as is outlined in the motion. So it's not as straightforward as it might seem. There are additional considerations that have to go into it before that is approved. So that is what's before you. And just a final point on the use of area rating funds for this. This is engineering and design work that is working towards capital. So it is my understanding that this is within the policy that governs the use of area rating reserve funds, because it is capital design work that leads to ultimately to capital construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers indicating? Councillor Crouch.
Thanks. I'm diligently going to speak to every area rating related motion until I can 100% figure out what to do with them, because I'm trying to learn how this all works. And so I just wanted to ask the mover, if I understood correctly, this is like for studies basically, or for feasibilities or recommendations, or like design work and that kind of stuff, to decide whether or not this is a possible thing. And so it's possible they get it back and say, we're not going to do this. This is too expensive, or there's no feasible option. But you're saying that regardless, the kind of study you're asking for is within the framework. So I get that. My question is, because I don't understand this part, is it coming out of your area rating reserve discretionary piece, or like the main one? And like, would you have to specify that if it was a motion? That's what I don't understand, is like if it's discretionary funds or like the main reserve, and like, would you specify it if it was discretionary funds? Thank you.
Thank you. Procedurally, Councillor?
Short answer, I have no idea. I work with staff to develop the recommendation. I believe the count there, 108058, is the main Ward 8 area rating reserve account. But that was just the account that staff recommended this be funded through. I didn't have any input beyond that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, that's helpful because I know I'm in the process of having discussions where that we have discretionary funds that expire, and I think they're all still in the same account. So I will take this offline and have a great time trying to dig through the weeds of that. But from your understanding, it's just coming out of your reserve, and that's cool. Thank you. There's also a bocce club in Ward 2, which is also why I'm interested in this. It's also an outdoor bocce club right now. So anyways, just a little bit of entertainment for the end. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. There's no other speakers at this time, so it's been duly moved and seconded and before committee for consideration.
Councillor McMeekin, are you able to vote? I didn't see your thumb.
Councillor McMeekin, if you can note, vote. This is investment of area rating funds into Bocce Club in Ward 8. We can't hear you, so please visually indicate your vote. In favor or against? Councillor McMeekin, we can't hear you. Oh, thumbs up, thank you. That carries. Thank you. Moving on, notices of motion. This one's staying as a notice. Do I still need to relinquish the chair to introduce it? Yes. Okay, Councillor Pauls, if you could, please.
Go ahead and introduce your motion, please.
Thank you. And it's going to remain as a notice, committee members. This is, you all heard the delegation at General Issues Committee Budget Delegation Day. Also for ward councillors who have city-owned staircases along the escarpment bordering your wards, you've also heard a lot about this issue. So the motion reads as, whereas in the United Nations report, City Alive, Designing Cities That Work for Women, published in October 2022, it stated that without a gender-responsive approach to urban planning, cities often compound gender inequalities that restrict women's social, economic opportunities, health and well-being, and sense of safety and security, and access to justice and equity. And whereas the rate of police-reported sexual assaults in Canada has reached its highest level since 1996, and whereas Hamilton Sexual Assault Centre has seen a dramatic increase in calls to the 24-hour support line over the last 3 years, and whereas the City of Hamilton is responsible for 5 escarpment staircases to provide recreation facility and active transportation links between the mountain and Laura City, and whereas in December 2021, an unknown man approached a resident, Tara McFadden, and attempted to sexually assault her during her morning daylight workout on the escarpment stairs, and whereas other residents who have survived sexual violence that has occurred on the escarpment stairs have raised the alarm bell on the need for the City of Hamilton to do better and be responsive. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to conduct a crime prevention through environmental design review of the 5 city-owned escarpment staircases and report back on recommendations to improve the safety of the escarpment staircase use, specifically to prevent sexual violence, including any considerations to be referred to the 2024 budget process for consideration. And won't speak to it as it's a notice of motion, but it's there for you, and happy to talk to folks offline before it comes to committee next agenda. Thank you.
Thank you,
back to the
Councillor.
chair.
Are there any? Yes, Councillor, can I say something, please?
We're not debating the motion at this time.
I'm not debating the motion.
Okay.
I just want to ask you, if when you do put the motion, if I could be your seconder, I've been talking to Tara myself, and also I have one of the busiest stairs, the Wentworth stairs, and I'm very supportive of it. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm supported. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other notices of motion, committee members? Seeing none, we're moving on to general information and other business. There are amendments to the outstanding business list that are before you. If I could please get a mover and seconder to approve these amendments. Moved by Councillor Francis, seconded by Councillor Kassar. Thank you both. Any discussion? None, so please vote. And carried, thank you. And now, very important motion, please, adjournment, mover, seconder, moved by Councillor Kassar, thank you, seconded by Councillor Beatty, thank you both. And as the vote gets tallied, thank you again to all staff for your preparation of reports and in response to all the committee questions. And thank you for everybody tuning in. And sorry to media for you having to work off of your laptop and your lap instead of in chambers. Councillor Wilson, are you ready to adjourn? Thank you. Carried. I'm going to call that one.